Good day and welcome America and beyond. I'm Tom Donahue for Tom Donahue Reports and Truth Matters, examining the truth, seeking the truth, and allowing you, the listener, to be the discerner and the decider. And ultimately, I hope that you're on a quest for truth. With that said, let's jump right in to this week's show. And Trump's handler, Mark Levin, is at it again. Cranky's at it. He rips Trump for bashing Netanyahu and being deeply desperate to strike an Iran deal. So you want more lives lost? You want more human wreckage and carnage? Now, again, I've talked about Trump being treacherous, traitorous, being a tyrant. But if he's seeking some kind of deal to get this thing over with, then I applaud him for that. So I got to give him a little credit. But it's so funny that Trump is not being adequately criticized on the right for being drowsy, dozing Don. Whether it's at the New York Knicks game in basketball, whether it's at a cabinet meeting, whether it's at a conference. If he's not talking, he's probably dozing because he's drowsy. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. One, his age, about to turn 80. Secondly, he's sleep deprived. He admits to that. That's why you see these social media meme sprees and these meme meltdowns in the middle of the night. So you got age, you got sleep deprivation, you have health conditions that we at least can see and we're not fully aware of to what extent. So I think Trump has sleep deprivation. I think he has chronic health issues. I think that his age plays a role. We don't know if there's any side effects to medications. And we know that there is mental decline, which can cause irritation, they can cause irritability, and sleep disruptions. So one of the things I would suggest is, have you tried melatonin? Have you tried any sleep-related herbs? Also, I don't know what his magnesium levels are, but magnesium would also be very relaxing. GABA, another. So there are things, chamomile tea. I mean, there's yoga, there's aromatherapy. There's a lot of things that could be incorporated that Melania could help him with, his daughter, Ivanka. So I really think that this sleep deprivation is really causing many of his issues. But again, I'm not here to diagnose, but I just felt like I wanted to make my comments known. These are just observations. So Netanyahu defies Trump as Lebanon drive a wedge. Israel and Iran exchange strikes in the most serious escalation since the April ceasefire. Now I don't know how true this is. This is very interesting, but Trump declares Israel has no choice but to accept any Iran deal that he makes. And he says, I call the shots. Okay, doesn't appear that way, but hey, whether Trump was or maybe is about to, that is becoming more present in future, if he's had it with Netanyahu and decides to buck him and decides to grow a spine and a backbone, then by all means, this is great. But is this just show and tell? I mean, is this just theater, political theater? Is this what he and the Israeli prime minister agreed to? Remember, Trump had the so-called profane tirade in his phone call with him prior to this. Now, was that also staged? I mean, Trump says everything is a hoax, fake, and staged, so we don't know what is real and what is staged, Mr. Trump. And you are the master of all hoaxes in terms of labeling and defining just about everything else as hoaxes. Now, Trump got really frustrated on Meet the Press with his interview with Welker and walked off. He walked off of this, he stomped on the mic. He didn't like the line of questioning. So he cut off the interview with Welker because I've had enough, and tossed his mic and trekked on off. Well, number one, I've said this from the very beginning. Why do you go on those shows? He has this insatiable thirst for the media to adore him, the media to accept him, the media to love him. You've got enough of sycophants on the right that do that, so you don't need the liberal progressive, as you call it, fake press. But he continues to call them. He accepts their calls. John Carl from ABC News said, "Oh, I just got off the phone talking to the president." They have his phone number. I remember when he was participating in Bob Woodward's book, and they said, Woodward said that, and he apparently was able to show the calls, coming, the timestamps, and said, "I get these calls at midnight, 2 a.m. Hey, I've got an idea. Hey, I just thought about what you said." And then you critique the book. What did you expect from Bob Woodward? I mean, really, you're not going to get a puff piece. You're not even going to get a fair deal. So he continues to do this. He cannot help himself. He just loves the publicity. He loves being in the headlines. I really believe Trump all along, regardless of the sleep deprivation, irritability, things are getting worse in terms of his manic moments, that I believe that he has had a mental illness. I really do. I mean, you can look back at a lot of things he has said and done over the years. And some people still, it's sort of like even though Trump doesn't drink, but you know how people say, "Oh, he's a functional alcoholic." I think it's been because, he has his own business, he can call his own shots. I believe that he is a functional, mentally disabled person. But that's just my view, okay? Again, I don't state something as facts if I'm speculating. Now, Trump dropped a music hype video that was absolutely insane. And it was about Love Trump Worldwide. And he showed him in all these different countries and different people saying, love Trump. And that, I mean, the music sounded kind of cool, but it looks like something that a teenager would do, kind of putting together a music compilation and just sending it out to their friends. But this is the president of the United States, and he's showing himself in all these different roles, again, cosplaying, and in all these different countries that many of them despise him and that have had bad dealings with Trump, but it makes it look like he's being beloved by the world. Trump thanked himself again for all the beautification and all the building projects that he is working on, including the reflecting pool, among other things. I have to say that, and I was taught this from an early age, and I think most of you have too, that it's better for other people to bestow compliments and to thank you and appreciate you than you pointing out that you deserve or you're owed these things. But again, that's circling back to this mental derangement and psychoses and narcissism and just lunacy. I mean, we are living in an age of the insane asylum, and it's Trump's world, and we live in it. It's a soap opera, melodramatic series of events on a routine, regular, daily basis. And we just have to get used to it, I guess. Not so fast. I don't really think we need to. I think we need to pull the plug. There's so many things to cover, and it's hard to stay focused in a sequential and logical way. So I'm hoping you guys are following along. I know that you are competent and capable of processing and gathering what is relevant to you based on the material that I'm sharing. So let me just continue on. I thought this was kind of interesting. I love the way people can crunch the numbers and put together things that I'm not a data person. I'm not someone that is a calculator type. So they compiled the fact that Trump has claimed an Iran peace deal was imminent for the 38th time. And I'm sure it's at 39 or 40 when you have the opportunity to listen. Could be as high as 50. Now, the U.S., at a time where Trump is off to the Knicks game, and some are saying so selfish, so narcissistic, so self-centered that he had to disrupt the entire city of New York, especially where he's highly unpopular, and watch parties and various things and all the security. And the traffic, and it just was very disruptive. And the city, Manhattan and the 5 boroughs, they're not happy. And they're even less happy, actually infuriated with the fact that they feel Trump cursed this game. And, I don't believe in curses, and I don't believe in, wearing a magic so you're not jinxed. So the Knicks lost because the Spurs played a better game. But they're blaming Trump that he cursed the game, so-called bad luck charm, because they say the Knicks as a team hasn't lost in 46 days. So their win streak ends at 13, which is a pretty good win streak in professional basketball. But the New York Knicks fans loudly booed Trump. And he and the Fox News sycophants and phonies couldn't even admit to the fact that the boos were like 90% probably compared to like 10% cheers for Trump. So they said, it was a divided audience. No, it wasn't. And Trump said, he felt like that he got a really warm reception. And so here he is in the midst of a war, among other things, completely disrupting the most populous city in the country at a time where people need a little entertainment and escape. And Trump goes there, he's in the owner's special seating, and here's Trump falling asleep. Didn't even watch it probably missed more than half the game. And he had the audacity, which at that time I thought was a keen observation, calling Biden Sleepy Joe. And now we've got drowsy Don, dozing off Don. So, and Trump says that he's just closing his eyes and reflecting. No, you're sleeping during very important cabinet meetings. So if you're going to sleep during the game, you could have just done that at the White House or done it at Mar-a-Lago or, wherever you'd want to be. But again, Trump had to be in the center of attention. He had to be in the spotlight. And that's just the way he's always lived his life, craving the attention. The world revolved around him. Well, the Iranians took advantage of it and shot down an Apache helicopter. Now, a fantastic Navy drone rescue boat, which is very new technology and just miraculous in terms of its performance. And so they were rescued. So that was some good news. Well, Trump had to retaliate, of course. And so the U.S. launched strikes on Iran in response to the downed Apache helicopter. Jet fighters used precision munitions to hit Iranian radar sites and ground control stations in an attack that lasted several hours, according to U.S. Central Command. Well, in that instance, it does make sense for the U.S. to respond and retaliate. So I'm not going to fault Trump for that and our U.S. military. But these claims of imminent peace is at hand, and it just doesn't happen. And all the mixed messaging doesn't look good. Trump is losing everywhere in terms of the courts, especially with the tariffs. And I want to say one more thing before we go to the break. And all this hullabaloo about stolen election and that Pratt had the lead. Well, with mail-in ballots, second most populous city, you knew it was going to take a long time to count. Democrats tend to use more mail-in ballots than Republicans. Apparently, they have these transparent viewing areas that anyone can inspect, can oversee. I'm not there. I don't know if there's in any way, shape, or form election fraud. It wouldn't surprise me. But who in their right minds thought that Spencer Pratt had a chance to win in a city like Los Angeles? Overwhelmingly Democrats. And Democrats, no matter how bad circumstances get in their cities, almost always, almost inevitably, they vote in the incumbent, in particular, a Democrat or a progressive. So even if he had maintained second place, he was going to lose anyway. He was destined to lose. If you have specific, concrete evidence, present it, investigate it. I have no problem with that. And if that were the case, Steve Hilton places second, a better candidate. And California as a whole, there are some pockets of Republican and conservative areas, unlike Los Angeles. But as I mentioned earlier, he's probably got about a 10% chance of winning the general election. But hats off to him for qualifying, getting into that second spot, and we'll see where that goes. But if it was completely rigged, they would have knocked Hilton out too. And if these elections are so rigged, how did Trump win 2 out of 3 falls and get elected? So you got to start using some common sense too. Not everything's fake. Not everything's a hoax. Not everything's a conspiracy. But there are true hoaxes and fake news and conspiracies. But you can't cry wolf every single time that something doesn't go your way. And all these primary wins that Trump is stacking up, almost all of them will fail in the general election. And that's what happened in 2024 and 2022, because Trump he acts on impulse and he doesn't think things through. And if you are perceived as someone that voted against him, or that you didn't heap lavish praise on him, if you're not a dutiful soldier for Trump, he will endorse someone that will lick the bootstraps. That's just where we're at. More to come. Right back. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. Tom Donahue for best-selling Eden Pure Thunderstorm 2 air purifier uses proven oxy technology that quickly destroys viruses, odors, mold, and so much more with thousands of 5-star reviews. It really does work. And I can tell you, I've used it for 8+ years. Every day. Any smell will vanish after just a few seconds with the thunderstorm being on. Odors from litter boxes, trash cans, cigarette smoke, mildew, and much more are no match for the Thunderstorm 2. The powerful thunderstorm sends out O3 molecules which seek out and destroy odors. These molecules even go behind and under furniture. Nothing can hide from the thunderstorm. Best of all, no filters ever, saving lots of money. Start enjoying your clean home again. You can save $50 on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 2 if you click on my link at my website. Add another unit and you'll get an additional $20 off. Each additional thunderstorm you add to your cart while shopping, you'll get that additional $20 off. That's $70 for every additional one you place your order for. You must click on my link at my website to get these savings. Reiterate some of the major points. The Thunderstorm 2 proven oxy technology destroys viruses, odors, mold, mildew, cleans the air of allergy-causing particles so you can breathe easier again, freshens the scent of your home. It gets rid of any odor, whether it's litter boxes, trash cans, cigarette smoke, cooking smells, and I cook with garlic, and it works. So never breathe dirty air again in your home. No filters to buy, takes up virtually no space. It plugs directly into the wall. Very quiet, nearly silent. Great for use even in your bedrooms. It's compact even for travel. If you're staying in a hotel and you know how musty and mildewy those hotel rooms can be, Tom Donahue, Eden Pure, and you go to TomDonahueReports.com. TomDonahueReports.com. It'll take you to the Eden Pure Thunderstorm 2. All the information's there. As soon as you start clicking through the shopping cart, you'll get those discounts because you're clicking on my link. Absolutely 100% endorse this and have used it for more than 8 years. These units at the regular price is quite a deal. But then you get $50 off by simply clicking on the banner, and each additional unit, you can take another $20 off per unit. So that brings the price to $59. I don't know how they do it. It's an incredible product already. Tremendous pricing. Take advantage of this by clicking on the banner, TomDonahueReports.com, Eden Pure. It's a must-have. I use it every day and completely 100% endorse it. Welcome back, Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. A very brief segment here because we went long on the last stretch. So let me just jump right to a couple topics that I want to touch on. We may carry forward after the break. Trump embraces the month of May price spikes amid the Iran war, and he's quoted as saying, "I love the inflation." In his mind, he thinks as soon as this war gets wrapped up, then everything will just blossom. Everything will just springboard back. Well, a lot of things are baked in. It's going to take a while if we recover completely in the end. U.S. households and businesses are stung by higher energy prices that have pushed inflation above 4%, 4.2%. So all the criticism of Biden and Bidenflation, I guess we're going to have to come up with a term for Trump. And the U.S. is bombing Iran, hitting many military sites. I thought we obliterated all of that. I thought that they were totally annihilated militarily. I guess not, because they're firing at military bases that the U.S. has in the Middle East and also neighboring countries. And they're claiming that it hit a civilian target, which had to do with water reserves, which is not a good thing. And beyond that, one other thing I want to squeeze in here, Trump says voter fraud claims forced California to approve Hilton for the second spot in the governor's runoff that's going to take place. I mean, come on, that's just illogical, nonsensical, ridiculous. Trump just makes things up. You know, whatever he wants to say or whatever he believes or thinks or dreams, that's the reality. It's not based in facts, evidence. If you disagree with him, you're the enemy. It's a fraud. It's a fake. It's a hoax. So yeah, there's so much going on. I mean, Trump. One thing about Trump's presidency, it's chaotic and it's never boring. But you know, sometimes dull and boring can be okay for periods of time, but not around Trump. Everything, you know, chaos follows him. It's just swirling. It's, you know, he is like the Trump tornado that's nonstop. Coming up on his 80th birthday, UFC fight. You look at the White House lawn, the White House complex, the White House itself. I mean, it looks like a demolition construction site. It is just outrageous. It's atrocious. It's just, you know, unconscionable that what he's done in the name of renovations and refurbishing and putting his expertise to work. We could do without it. Right back. Hold tight. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. You're listening to Truth Matters and Tom Donahue Reports, where the truth really does matter, shedding light and insight on the prevailing controversies, cover-ups, and conspiracies, always from an America First, patriotic, independent, conservative perspective. And be sure to listen each week at the same time. Also find out more about our show at TomDonahueReports.com, so available for podcast listen and download on all major podcast platforms. That's TomDonahueReports.com. Oh, welcome back, Tom Donahue. Truth matters. It really does around here. I was just thinking about the Fox Follies and the puppets for the puppet master Trump and the cheerleaders. Even Megyn Kelly says that. And so I did coin the term Fox Follies. Now, I'm not saying that everything Fox produces is propaganda and phony, but a lot of it is. And a lot of it is manufactured because they're profiteers. So not only are they propagandists, but they're profiteers off the coattails of Trump. And case in point, the clearest example, but I actually think he is committed to Trump, and that's Sean Hannity. And Sean Hannity is a true believer. Now, he became a believer over time, and he certainly got there, and he was never hostile like Levin and Beck and various others. He was just ambivalent and kind of feeling his way with the different candidates in 2016. But after he hitched his wagon to Trump, he's been a true blue loyalist. And so I do believe they have an affinity and there is a strong and deep connection. But Hannity's ratings in television have been mediocre at best, especially being on a prime cable #1 network, news network. And he never beat out O'Reilly. He never beat out Tucker. The only time he ever did was when he would have Trump as a guest, or would have some kind of special programming that involved Trump. So Trump has been very good to him in many ways, including his ratings and rankings. Otherwise, I don't know if they would have kept Hannity around when they made programming changes. Now, Hannity never did anything of a controversial nature. He wasn't a woman abuser or molester or a philanderer around the office, like so many have, and so many have been booted to the curb. But yeah, I was just thinking about that, and it's very troubling when we saw the text messaging, and I covered this in great detail, when the voting machine company, Dominion, and then later Smartmatic, through discovery, they had to give up their phone messages in order for them to see what were they actually communicating at the time that they were claiming that these election machine companies were involved in a conspiracy to rig the election, which proved to be untrue. And the fact is that these messages at the time, and Tucker was included, I mean, Tucker called Trump a demon, and he hated him. And Hannity never had those kind of messages. But Laura and Jesse Walters and various others, they were all like saying, "What are we going to do with when the J6 thing happened? You know, we don't want to offend our audience. We don't want to lose our audience." Essentially, what they were saying. So even though they felt personally and privately that Trump lost, that the J6ers were, many of them, not all of them, violent rioters, and that it really spooked them, and they were deeply concerned about the PR of the event. And so that's why I talk about the Fox Follies and the propagandists. And again, on the left, you've got the MS Now, and you've got the CNN, and and then the establishment mainstream media, all propagandists for the left. Now, you have to also realize that you have both parties that have been corrupted. One is more socialist/communist, and the other one is more corporatist and believing that Wall Street and big business and corporations, in conjunction with government, is really more important to them than mainstream, the average Jane and Joe in America. Here's an article from The Hill that talks about, and I just mentioned that in the previous segment, that Trump has always sought out media attention and validation. And sure enough, Caitlin Collins, CNN, said the MAGA base just doesn't realize that Trump seeks validation from the mainstream media. And there's not a truer statement. It is absolutely correct. And I talked about how Trump worked in conjunction with Bob Woodward in his book, and that he sits down with these interviews. So even the media itself realizes that Trump really wants them to write nice things. He really wants their love and affection and attention, and he wants them to frame him in a more positive light. If I were in Trump's position, they could be at a press conference, but I'm just not sitting down with them. I'm not giving up or sharing anything extra with them, because I don't need their validation. I don't need their acceptance. I don't need them to effectuate my agenda if I'm in the political realm. Now, there was a time when you only had a few networks, and that there was, the newspapers relied on the AP and UPI newswires. And so you would want to get your message out that way. But now he's got his own Truth Social. He can go on Twitter if he wants, X. He can I mean, he can do any kind of press conference. You see all the memes he puts out. And so he can communicate directly with the American people and public. And he's got a stranglehold over the Republican Party, at least to some extent, because things are starting to, fray a bit now that his approval ratings are at 30% below freezing. So, yeah, that's what we're dealing with Trump, is that he's constantly seeking validation, praise, flattery, attention, the spotlight. He's a sick and sinister person. I mean, the 25th Amendment, I talked about this way before most people in this term. They need to pull the switch. Now, J.D. Vance, a little surprising to me, as chameleon-like as he is, and a creature of the tech titans, he has been trying to push Trump to get out of this war. He pushed for Trump not to go into this war. It's kind of interesting that someone that was not an America firster, truly, I mean, he came to the table late, Johnny come lately, due to the fact that he wanted a political career beyond just being a writer and a tech guy. He took on the mantle, just like Trump became an America firster and a protectionist. Now, he was somewhat of a protectionist on trade years ago, but he did not in any way espouse the America First agenda until he became, right around the time before he declared for the presidency, his candidacy. But yeah, just getting more and more interesting, and again, I would not vote for Vance, even if he's doing some good things behind the scenes. But again, here is something that you want to get to a really crazy headline and story. And there's, I'm going to have to do a lot more research before I can do complete segments and programs on this. But J.D. Vance was in the Situation Room with Susie Wiles and with Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. And they were using the Situation Room for Trump's situation in the Epstein files. And I'll tell you, massive leaks to these reporters, New York Times, etc., and they were able to recount the story of what happened. And one of those Epstein files that troubled them was Nipplegate, nipple abuse, they called it. And they got very panicky about this. J.D. Vance surprisingly said that we should release that. There's much more serious allegations that have swirled around Trump. And he'll just deny it, that it's just an accusation, an allegation. Susie Wiles and the others, except for Vance, said no way. So they didn't want this information to get out. And I don't recall hearing about this in the files, but apparently, it's alleged that Trump was with one of the younger girls and he has this fixation, an obsession with nipples and abusing them. But nevertheless, it is a fetish, I guess. I get, this is kind of weird stuff. But so then J.D. Vance suggests, well, maybe we get Maxwell to do a sit-down interview with Tucker, and she can tell Tucker that she never saw Trump do anything lewd, or the fact that, he is an innocent man. And then that didn't go anywhere. But this was before, I think, the fallout, of course, between Trump and Tucker Carlson. But Tucker was one of the key guys, including Don Jr., that pushed for Vance to be the VP pick. But yeah, there's a lot of other stuff that they talk about that's occurred in the second term that's pretty wild stuff, and we can, certainly break some of those things down, in future shows. And I've done so much reporting on the Epstein files, and there's so much more to discuss. Bill Gates gave his testimony, said he never victimized anyone. He met with him as a philanthropist, and that he never saw anything and never suspected anything. Yeah, right. Look at how creepy he is. Just like Epstein's lawyer, Dershowitz. I didn't realize that Dershowitz was involved in the first case that got such a light sentence. And again, I'm not trying to say it's a Jewish thing, because, you do have Dershowitz, you have Epstein, you've got the former prime minister of Israel spending time at the Epstein mansion. Some Israeli Jewish brotherhood here. And again, that's not to say that, there are many very upstanding decent, honorable Jewish people. So I'm not in that camp that lumps any group, any religion, ethnicity, race, in some categorical overreach in terms of explanation or accusation. So Schumer says Trumpflation, just like remember Bidenflation. Marjorie Taylor Greene calls out Trump as a traitor over his handling of the Epstein files. And I certainly agree. There's a UFO survey that says 84% say the U.S. government knows more than it's telling. That's pretty obvious. But again, you can see these high percentages of people that believe that Kennedy assassination, both the president, John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, MLK, the government was involved in a cover-up, if not more. The majority, this is a huge number that really believe the government knows a lot more and it's concealing, even with some of the files that have been released. This government has lied to us about just about everything. So Trump and Levin, again, remember I talked about Levin being the handler, and he's getting a little upset because of this nearing so-called pipe dream of a deal and settlement with Iran, and they're demanding Congress boot this bum, this loser, Raskin Democrat who led the impeachment efforts and should be in jail now. Trump is pushing the Republican Congress to put together a resolution that absolves him, that forgives him, or that undoes, it would undo his 2 impeachments. Well, it doesn't work that way constitutionally. There's no provision to undo an impeachment. And even if he does a resolution, it's not going to change the course of history. So there is no constitutional means to, it's not like a pardon or a clemency. It would just be a mere resolution that is not, Trump might feel better about it, but it won't take away the stain of those impeachments, and it will go down in the history books. Just like Trump, I think it was the Smithsonian and probably the National Archives, where he got them to take out anything relating to his impeachments. People are not going to forget. They know it happened, okay? And Trump's still wanting his name on the Kennedy Center. He wants bridges, he wants he wants highways, he wants airports, he wants stadiums, he wants transit centers, he wants his name everywhere. Trump's got his name all over the world with these buildings and casinos and, various other projects. And hey, you're the president twice. Your name is out there, good, bad, or indifferent. So I don't know. I don't think I've ever encountered or witnessed or viewed or am I aware of anyone that's more narcissistic than Trump, a malignant narcissist. He truly believes, with these memes putting him in this Messiah-like complex, he believes he is superior. We talked about low IQ people, and it's so funny because most of these people could run circles around him intellectually. But, you look at even just the vocabulary of some of the people he calls low IQ, and it's just laughable. But I would love to see Trump take a legitimate IQ test, and I'd certainly like to see these cognitive tests, really, kind of insane. But when he talks about some of the questions, the answers is like, a 5-year-old could put that together. They could identify a bear and a lion and a giraffe. And some of it's just ridiculous. So anyway, we're going to take our final break. We'll have another stretch on the other side. Hold tight. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. Okay, we are back. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. Tom Donahue Reports, final stretch. And I decided during the break to stick with the blockbuster revelations that came from a recent book release and New York Times article, and Haberman and Swan's reporting. And I looked at the Well, it's actually being covered in many different media venues. But on Mediaite, it talked about the 6 blockbuster revelations from the book and the article. So I thought I would just go over them, even though I may not have the time to delve as deeply as I'd like, and we may circle back. Now, the first one was Trump berated Charlie Kirk. And this was when he was with Turning Point USA, and they did one of their big events. And many of the speakers were speaking out about the Epstein files. And it turned out to be an Epstein grievance fest, where several speakers ripped then AG Pam Bondi, and Trump called Kirk and scolded him. So some of those speakers beyond Charlie was Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly. And so Trump and the Trump administration were very unpleased, very dissatisfied, and actually irate. So that same day, Trump backed Bondi on social media and said his fans needed to stop wasting time and energy on Epstein. The second revelation that was brought to the forefront, which I kind of thought it was possible, but I just never had the information. It doesn't change the outcome, but it says Bongino went nuclear over the handling of the Epstein files. Then when he was deputy director, Bongino berated Bondi after the Justice Department published a memo that said Epstein did not have an incriminating client list and that no further disclosure would be made. The day the memo was released, Bongino showed up to the daily Justice Department meeting with the FBI staff and the AG, and he was volcanic in his mood. And as soon as he entered the room, he erupted at Bondi and shouted at her. And he said, "You F this thing up from the start." And he continued yelling. So there were quite a few F-bombs. So Kash Patel and Dan Bongino both subsequently told White House officials that Bondi needed to resign. So that's pretty explosive. And so it shows me that Bongino initially was very agitated and angered by Bondi's mishandling of things. And of course, Bondi recently said it all goes back to Blanche. You know, Blanche was responsible and she delegated to him. So J.D. Vance, number 3, tried to broker a sit-down with Joe Rogan for Epstein files cleanup. The administration had pushed for then Deputy AG to go on Rogan's show, but Rogan told Vance he didn't want him on the show during a phone call. So the interview never happened. Number 4, Kash Patel pushed for Bondi's immediate resignation after nothing to see here Epstein files memo. Patel and Bongino both told the White House officials that Bondi needed to quit her job when the aforementioned memo was published. So then there was a meeting called, and the 2 men were summoned, Susie Wiles and Bondi, in the Situation Complex. And the moment Bongino sat down, Wiles told him that she had been informed he leaked a sensitive story about Epstein and Trump to ABC News. So Bongino, again, livid, irate, said that he would give $100,000 cash right now. And he goes, "I'm not kidding," to put the reporter on the speaker and get him to admit that I leaked it. Then he says, so again, he repeats, $100,000. The Wiles snapped back, "Well, we all got ourselves into this, ... Bongino cut her off. No. We didn't get ourselves into anything. I warned you guys about the whole time, and you ignored me. And exactly what I said was going to happen, happened, and now you're pretending I was in on this, and I was never in on this." Wiles then told Bongino the Trump team needed to be all in and agreed to move forward. Bongino said he was not in on the plan and stormed out. I guess that was around the time, remember, there was talk that he and Bondi had words and that he didn't show up in the office. Number 5, Bongino predicted Epstein would be Trump's Iran-Contra. Shortly after Bongino vented to a confidant that Epstein is going to be President Trump's Iran-Contra affair. He also went off on Bondi saying Blondie effed this whole thing up, using a nickname for the AG coined by Laura Loomer. Well, I actually said bombastic Blondie, but anyway, it doesn't matter. And the number 6 that was mentioned in this story, recapping the 6 bombshells, the 6 big things within this story in this book, said Vance pitched a Tucker Carlson interview, Ghislaine Maxwell, on behalf of the administration. Vance at one point was panicked over how the Epstein saga was dividing Trump's MAGA base. His solution, Vance floated to colleagues an extraordinarily PR gambit, and the White House enlists Tucker Carlson to interview Epstein's longtime associate and co-conspirator. Vance believed it might help the president if Maxwell was willing to state that Trump had not been a part of any wrongdoing with Epstein. Well, because that never came about, and again, I don't know if Tucker was ever pitched this idea. I don't know if Tucker would have agreed to something like that. I just don't know. So I guess we got to keep our eyes and ears open and dig further and delve deeper. But we do know that Todd Blanche decided to be the interviewer and interview her, and then she was post haste transported to a cushy cozy camp because she said the things that they wanted said, and he asked the softball questions of her during that deposition, if you want to call it a deposition or interview, whatever. This isn't the last word as it relates to Epstein, the Trump Epstein files, and this ongoing saga. But I'll give Bongino a little bit of credit here, that he initially seemingly stood up for what was right. But then he went along, and now he is part of this massive cover-up. And if he said those things, which I believe he did, then why doesn't he come clean now and tell the truth and speak out and come at, even though Bondi's gone, but he seems to have a close relationship with Patel. So I guess Patel has kind of kept him in check and kept him toned down. If Bongino wanted to win back more of the MAGA base, if he wanted to win back, actually regain his reputation, he would come clean. And I'd love to hear his response to some of this, but to me, it resonates as being true. So with that said, that's a wrap for this week. Tom Donahue, Truth Matters. Have a great week.